Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I am really excited for today's show. But before we get started, I would like to ask our audience to please visit cobrt.com. Our website just got an upgrade, so we're very excited about that. You can find this podcast and more under the Media tab. You can click on Radio Podcasts for all of our past shows. You also should check out our events page while you're there and sign up for the many events that we have going on. But that leads me to today's show and today's guest. There is an exciting event happening April 2nd. That is a Cybersecurity Summit, and that is here in Denver. And that will be at the Hilton Denver City Center. But I have with me via Skype Bradford Rand. He is the president and CEO of Cybersecurity Summit USA. So Bradford, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yes, of course. It's a pleasure to have you on. So one of the things that I make all of my guests do, whether they're in studio in person or joining me via Skype, is I like to have them give a little bit of background about themselves and why you are in cybersecurity.
Okay. Well, I've been a serial entrepreneur probably since the age of, I don't know, 9 or 10. I've always been starting a small business, and I even had one in college. And what I did after working on Wall Street for a little bit, I just found it to be just monotonous, and I hated calling people up for money as a stockbroker. And I got into advertising and marketing, and I didn't have a job, and my friend went to a job fair. So I started a job fair business in 1992, and it was called the Job Expo. It was for sales and management professionals. In 1995, as you may know, the internet boomed and email was created. Like really, that was the main year. And we started a job fair called Tech Expo. Tech Expo was a great job fair for computer professionals, pretty much in the Northeast. We became the largest job fair in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Philadelphia. And everything was going great until the dot-com bomb. And that was in 2000. And so business went from, there, it went, almost, we were almost bankrupt. And then to make matters worse, 9/11 happened in New York, as you know, a year later. And at that point, we were like, okay, I should just pack it up. I should leave New York, move to Florida, and maybe become like a volleyball coach. I just needed to get out of New York, do something. But right as I was about to shut our doors, we brainstormed an idea to produce job fairs for the defense industry. Now, that was the only industry in 2001, 2002 that was actually thriving. Everyone else was laying off. And we did a job fair for companies such as Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, because they were all hiring top secret cleared professionals. We then created Tech Expo Top Secret, and that became also, thank God, the largest job fair in the defense industry. And we got out of, literally, we were this close to bankruptcy. So, the old saying of, quitters never win and winners never quit. We did not quit. We stayed in business, and we became this great job fair company for the intelligence and the defense industry. And that leads us to Cybersecurity Summit. So about 6 years ago, I had come up with the idea of teaching C-suite professionals, CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, CTOs, Chief Technology Officers, and CIOs and CEOs and Vice Presidents of IT Security, giving them like a one-day kind of a crash course on how to protect their companies from getting hacked. There's a lot of big trade shows out there, great ones like RSA and Black Hat and DEF CON, but they're so huge right now that a lot of these senior level business leaders, these CISOs and CTOs, they don't have time to walk 300 booths. Or at RSA, which is happening right now actually, or next week, has over 700 booths. They don't have time because every bank is getting breached every 15 minutes. Every hospital, there's an attack on all these major retailers as well. So they don't have the time to leave for 3 or 4 or 5 days. So I came up with the idea of producing a summit, and we do it now in 14 strategic important cities around the United States, where just one day only we teach these business leaders the best practices. And that is the Cybersecurity Summit. And for the last 3 years, we've actually been rated top 50 now in the world as a must-attend security event. And that's where we are.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good to know. So that being said, you mentioned that you're top rated on the summit. I imagine that you've got some pretty good experts speaking.
Yeah. At all of our summits, we partner up with the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the U.S. Secret Service as our keynotes and as our closing keynotes. And they provide great insight as to the latest threats that are facing businesses today, small and large. Alongside those great agencies, we have companies such as Google and Oracle and IBM and Darktrace and ExtraHop, all of these best-in-class cybersecurity companies that lend us their subject matter experts and also teach the latest on how to protect your company and what solutions are available now to business management on how to protect their company.
Well, let's talk about the importance of cybersecurity. As we know, it's been kind of a buzzword lately, and some people are saying that we might be too late for the cybersecurity, but I would imagine that you're never too late to jump on board, right?
That's the stupidest idea or statement I've ever heard, whoever's mentioning it. That's like saying, okay, we can't fight cancer, so let's just give up. No, we've got to keep trying. You know, we did cure polio. We did send a man to the moon. We can certainly protect our computers from criminals. So we're certainly not too late. The problem with cybersecurity, unlike a disease or like a challenge like going to the moon, is that the criminals are extremely smart. They are coming up. They're constantly innovating and thinking about new ways to take your money, to take your data, to steal. So once, and this is where the cybersecurity pattern is most important, once you make cure a virus or a malware, or you train your company on how to protect themselves, the cyber criminals may come up with another way to hack you. So it is always changing, but it's certainly not impossible. And there are a lot of ways where you can protect yourself from losing your data and potentially losing your company.
Yes. I wanted to ask you, this is something that I've broached on a few times in my show, but there's been some talk about cybersecurity being the place for a third world war. So we know that that would probably be the harshest way that you could attack any country.
Yeah, that was actually on the cover. The next world war will be a cyber war. I think that was on the cover of the Atlantic or the Economist about 6 years ago, and that was one of the inspirations for me to actually start this conference. The next big war will be partially a cyber war. It'll start out as a cyber war because there is technology now where if we were to attack another country, our cyber military forces would essentially try to shut off the electricity, the communications, the water supply, the energy grid of our enemy. So, for example, let's say if we were to attack North Korea, we would probably not start by bombing it. We would shut off all the lights. We would shut off all of the electric. And hopefully we can put them in a position where they would just surrender. Because if you can't communicate with your troops, if you can't feed your people, if you can't turn the lights on, there's no way to defend your company. So in that respect, any kind of a major conflict would begin with a cyber attack.
Wow. It's tough to think about. And you mentioned that that cover was 6 years ago, which again plays into this role that we might be behind. Never too late to start. But where should we be as a company as far as our cybersecurity goes?
Constantly training your staff. Don't click on stupid emails from people you don't know. It's called a phishing scheme. It's a very common term now. It's where I send you, or not me, if you didn't know me, that is. Let's say if you didn't know me, I sent you an email and I attached a PDF or I attached a link, and then you clicked on that link because you believed it. It could infiltrate your network And then once it's infiltrated, I could potentially grab all of your data and grab all of your information. Or I can potentially shut off your systems, which is what happened to Sony. Someone got in there and basically shut all the servers, the email servers down, and then was able to vacuum out all of the information, which was then shared with the world.
Yeah,
so it's training. I mean, it's constant training, but it is, of course, using the latest technology, the latest firewalls and hardware and software to prevent those cyber attacks. And then, of course, there's the introduction of artificial intelligence, which monitors your entire network, and then it looks for anomalies, looks for an incident where data is being vacuumed out. And hopefully at that point it will shut down the pipeline, shall we say, and then the data will stop leaving your company. Or it will at least alert management that, hey, Houston, we have a problem,
Yeah. I want to ask you this: as far as employment goes, there's always going to be bad guys out there trying to get this information, right? And once we stop that, block that, there's going to be an upgrade to a new system, a new way to infiltrate a company. How do we get these bad guys into these companies to help prevent those cybersecurity attacks?
Well, you mean, basically like hiring the criminal?
Essentially, why not?
I think that's from the movie Catch Me If You Can, where Leonardo DiCaprio, played the criminal, which was, of course, doing counterfeit money at the time, and then the FBI hired him to then fight crime, and now that character is a real person, is actually now giving speeches on how to protect your company. So yes, it is always smart to hire the bad guy to try to help your company, with that. But there's unfortunately always going to be another bad guy being born somewhere else. So the best things that you could always do is to try to get ahead of it, is to stay with the latest technologies to protect your company. And always, and I didn't do this for a long time myself, is I never upgraded my software. I never upgraded my phone. I always thought that was going to be a situation where my laptop or my phone was going to have a new bug or break down. Those updates that Apple or Microsoft or any of the major companies send you are imperative for cybersecurity. And I didn't know that.
I did not know that either. I appreciate that. And that's kind of where I would like to go within this conversation. We looked at, internationally speaking, right, the potential Third World War. We could shut down North Korea if that became the case, and that would be a way to get them to surrender. But nationally and locally speaking, when we're looking at cybersecurity, small businesses in particular, one of the last places I think a lot of people want to put their money is into securing their systems.
Sure. That is true, but they are a lower level target because there's not much to steal. Why am I going to cyber attack a dry cleaners? What's in it for me? Now, if they have the most updated systems and they are not capturing private information, they're in a good place. But if they have a lot of credit card numbers, if they have a lot of private information, then they would be a target. But it's not rich enough for a cyber criminal. A cyber criminal may do ransomware, such as the quintessential. They get into your system and they say, "Hey, pay us $1,500, and we will unlock your computer network again." That happens quite a bit. But a lot of the cyber criminals are really going after the big money and the big targets.
Rightfully, well, not rightfully so. They shouldn't do that, but understandably so. You mentioned that you have this cybersecurity summit in 14 strategic cities. You mentioned strategic. Why are these cities in particular?
Well, and we're going to be expanding to a few others, such as Nashville and potentially Toronto, actually. Just because it spreads around the entire country, our shows. We're coast to coast, and we're just very, in cities with the highest populations, which means if a city has a lot of population, that means they have a lot of hospitals. Hospitals are a big target, so we invite chief security officers of hospitals to join us, law firms, retail institutions, obviously banks. So strategic in that they are important cities, even though every city is quintessentially important. It's got some of the most dense population. And when there are more people, those are more potential victims of cybercrime. So we've chosen these 14 cities as where we want to educate leadership on the best practices and the current threats they should be looking out for.
Yes. What kind of audience are you hoping to get in Denver? Who would be your dream audience for Denver? What kind of attendees would you like to see?
Well, business owners, business leaders that have security as their responsibility, such as the title CISO, C-I-S-O, which means Chief Information Security Officer, CIO, Chief Information Officer, CTO, Vice President of Security. Basically, leaders that can make decisions on how to train their staff, people that can make decisions on how they can purchase various solutions from some of these sponsors that we have that are going to be showcasing their latest solutions to help solve the many problems out there. And really, I would say in that realm, it's not so much a summit for students or entry-level staff. It's a serious business conference for people that have serious jobs, and that job is to protect millions or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of technology and data.
Yes. So we are not looking for those students that are trying to make their way into the cybersecurity field. These are people that are already well into it and the next steps they should take.
Right. And there's plenty of free conferences and seminars out there for students. And I implore any young person that wants a guaranteed six-figure compensation package to investigate cybersecurity as a focus of a profession. There are going to be the latest reports, potentially over 1 million vacancies, job openings over the next 5 years within cybersecurity. So in terms of job security, cybersecurity is definitely a path that students should certainly endeavor on. So I encourage enthusiastically for young people to look at that as a course.
I want to talk about the future of cybersecurity. Sure. It's one of those fields that we don't know what we don't know. And it's going to continue to be like that for a while. But on the horizon, 2020, 2021, what are we seeing?
Well, I think there's going to be a continuation of more sophisticated phishing schemes. It's funny that you bring that up. My office was actually targeted last week, meaning somebody, a hacker, emailed one of my marketing people and said, listen, need your credit card, Bradford, got to pay for this item. Can I put this through a company credit card? And the hacker said, yeah, which was pretending to be me. And they almost clicked the button to buy, I think it was $2,000 worth of Best Buy gift cards, something generic. And then they called me up and they said, Brad, did you just want us to order $2,000 worth of Best Buy? I'm like, no, that's a hack. And then they looked at my email address, and the hacker had changed my email address just slightly so that they didn't notice the difference. So phishing schemes like that will always be present. Insider threat, great problem. Not great problem, but great topic. Your employees, our company's employees, are some of the biggest criminals in that I think it's over 60, 70% of a lot of the intrusions and and internal hacking comes from a disgruntled employee, an employee that wants to steal data, someone that maybe someone that just got fired, someone that hates their boss, and then they have all the usernames and passwords. They take over the network or vacuum that confidential data out. That's a big problem and will continue to be a big problem. The only way to reduce that is to basically tell every new employee and current employee that if they are ever discharged, if they're ever terminated, if they ever leave the company, that they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law if they decide to steal from the company on their way out, shall we say. Other risks, there's constantly new viruses that are coming out monthly, and that is the wild card. We don't know what is going to happen next week. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow in cybersecurity, which also keeps the industry fresh. It's never going to end. As long as there's computers out there, there's always going to be a person that wants to break into the other person's computer. So I don't think it's going to be a situation where there's going to be, hey, we've solved or we've come up with the cure for this disease, or we've come up with the cure for cybersecurity. That I do not see in the near future or ever, for that matter.
Yeah, with sophisticated systems comes sophisticated routes around that.
Well, there's always a workaround. Again, the cyber criminals are consistently coming up with new ways, new ideas to be entrepreneurial and come up with new ways to steal.
All right. Let's talk just a little bit more in depth about the Cybersecurity Summit, April 2nd, again, at the Hilton Denver City Center. So what can we expect? That's an all-day event, but it's only one day, right?
It's only one day. It begins early in the morning, 7:45. We have a catered breakfast, and then we'll have a catered lunch and cocktail reception at the end of the day. But it is filled with subject matter experts from the FBI, from Oracle, from Darktrace, which is one of the fastest growing artificial intelligence companies out there. Also ExtraHop, which does also lots of artificial intelligence, Pulse Secure, SailPoint, Dell, Ericom, and then we are also going to hear from the U.S. Secret Service. Actually, they are keynoting in the morning. Ike Barnes, who is in charge of the Electronic Crimes Task Force. So he's going to be opening up the show. And then we have, for the closing keynote, we have Tori Smith, who's the special agent with the FBI, who's also going to be talking about best practices and also what the latest threats are. So it's going to be an exciting day, and we're excited to come back to Denver. This is our second annual one.
That is some exciting stuff, and we're excited to have you guys join us here in Denver. We have about a minute left. Any last thoughts on individuals? I realize that the Security Summit is geared towards business owners, but as individuals, words of advice.
A couple of quick tips.
Yeah.
Quick tips are the easiest. Number one, every 3-4 months, or at least every 6 months, change all of your passwords. Change your PIN numbers. Easy stuff. And of course, don't make it easy. Don't make it a birth date. Don't make it your children's birth date. Something that people may not be able to guess. Consistently update your laptop. So if your laptop comes up with a pop-up saying, update your system, whether it's your phone or your laptop, go ahead and go ahead and update that. Do not open ever emails from people that you do not know. If you think that it is spam, if you think that it's a hacker, if you have any discomfort whatsoever, delete it, and then delete it from your trash. Those are 3 basic things that can really help right there in terms of preventing some attacks on the individual. Very easy things too, and it doesn't cost anything.
which I love hearing. Thank you so much, Bradford. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. And be sure to look out for that Cybersecurity Summit event that will be at the Hilton Denver City Center April 2nd. Thank you so much, Bradford.
Hey, thanks for having me.